All right, everybody, welcome back for another deep dive. And today we're going to be tackling something that honestly doesn't get enough attention in the van life world.
Oh, absolutely.
Ventilation.
Yeah.
I feel like we're always talking about, the best kind of fridge to have or, how to build the perfect bed or,
Yeah.
the galley kitchen. But if you don't have good ventilation, you're going to be miserable.
Totally.
So today we're going to be looking at some sources that talk about why is ventilation so important in a van?
Yeah.
What are some different options for getting that ventilation? And what are some of the challenges that go
Yeah,
along with it?
definitely. I think a lot of people don't realize that ventilation can really make or break your van life experience.
Mm.
You could have this amazing, you know, gorgeous interior,
Right.
but if you're battling condensation and stuffy air and, God forbid, mold,
Yeah.
you're really not going to be enjoying life on the road.
No, you're not.
No.
So let's start with the basics here.
hmm
Why is ventilation so important in a van? I mean, it's not like our houses are airtight.
Right. Well, think about it. Vans are essentially metal boxes,
Yeah.
and metal, it reacts to temperature changes
Yeah.
quite dramatically. So in the summer, that metal box, it's going to turn into an oven, and it's just going to soak up all that heat.
Right.
And then in the winter, it's going to be like living in a refrigerator.
Oh, yeah, I can see that being an issue.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not just about, regulating the temperature.
No.
You're cooking, you're sleeping, you're just breathing in this, relatively small enclosed space.
Right.
All of that activity is creating humidity, and without proper ventilation, that moisture has nowhere to go.
Yeah.
It's going to build up on your windows, your walls, even your belongings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's more than just comfort. We're talking about, the longevity of our conversion
Absolutely.
and even just, the health of the people living inside.
Yeah, a poorly ventilated van is just a breeding ground for mold and mildew. And trust me, you don't want to deal with those issues.
No.
Not
No.
only are they just unpleasant, but they can also be really harmful to your health, and they can cause some serious damage to your van's interior over time.
All right. So I think we've established ventilation is important.
Yes.
So how do we do it?
Yeah.
Our sources talk about, two main categories,
Okay.
windows and skylights.
Right.
So what are the things we need to consider when it comes to windows?
Well, the first thing you're going to want to decide is the type of window you want.
Yeah.
The two most common options for camper vans are sliding windows and awning windows, sometimes called casement windows.
Okay.
And both of those have their pros and cons.
Okay. So let's break that down. What are
Yeah.
the pros and cons of sliding windows?
Okay, so sliding windows are really popular because they're generally more affordable.
Okay.
They're easier to install, especially in tight spaces.
Okay.
They don't require any clearance outside the van to open, so they're great if you're, parking in spots where space is limited.
Right.
The downside is that they don't offer as much insulation as awning windows.
Gotcha.
So they might not be the best option if you're planning on spending a lot of time in cold climates.
Okay. So good for tight spaces.
Yeah.
Maybe not the best if you're in really cold weather.
Right.
What about awning windows?
So awning windows, those offer better ventilation and insulation because they open outward, creating a larger opening for air to flow through.
Okay.
They also just tend to have a more modern look and feel.
Okay.
However, they do require space outside the van to open, which, can be a consideration if you're parking in a tight spot.
Right.
And the installation can be a little more complex, which can also add to the cost.
So they're a little fancier, a little nicer looking, but they cost a little more and take a little more effort to put in.
Exactly. It really
Yeah.
comes down to, your individual needs and priorities.
Right.
Think about, your budget, the climate you'll be traveling in, and how much importance you place on, insulation and ventilation and things like that.
All right. So awning versus sliding, and we'll figure out what works best for us.
Welcome back. Let's talk skylights now.
All right. Skylights. So we talked about awning windows and sliding windows,
Right.
but it seems like our sources put a lot of emphasis on skylights as well.
Absolutely. They're super important, especially in a smaller van
Yeah.
where you have limited space. Skylights are really your ventilation powerhouse.
Okay.
They let in so much natural light and fresh air, which really helps open up the space and prevents it from feeling, cramped and closed in.
Right. And I've always been a little nervous about the idea of like cutting a giant hole in the roof of my van.
Yeah, I get that.
Do you really need a skylight?
Well, you don't strictly need one,
Okay.
but I would highly recommend it for all the reasons we've already discussed.
Yeah.
But if you are, apprehensive about the installation process, Don't worry.
Okay.
We'll get to that a little later.
Okay.
For now, let's focus on the different types of skylights available and how to choose the right one for your needs.
Okay, great. So our sources talk about 3 different types of skylights. Simple, motorized, and fan-equipped.
Oh, okay.
What are the differences?
So simple skylights are exactly what they sound like. They're simple.
Okay.
They're basically just a fixed piece of glass or acrylic that lets in light and air.
Okay.
They're usually the most affordable option.
Okay.
And they're a great choice if you're, on a tight budget or you prefer a more minimalist setup.
So the basic no-frills model.
Yeah, exactly.
But what if you want something a little more fancy? What about, like, if it starts raining and you don't want to have to, like, climb up there and close it?
Right. Well, that's where motorized skylights come in.
Okay.
These are definitely a step up in terms of convenience because they're controlled by a button or a remote.
Okay.
So you can open and close them from the comfort of your, bed or your seating area.
Oh, fancy.
Yeah.
So these are like the luxury models.
They are a bit more of a luxury, yeah.
Right.
But they are, especially useful if you have any mobility issues or if your skylight is in a hard-to-reach location.
Right. Or if you're just lazy.
Or if you're just lazy, exactly.
Okay, so you've got simple, you've got fancy motorized. What about if I'm really serious about airflow?
Right. Well, then you want to look at fan-equipped skylights.
Okay.
These are like the ultimate ventilation solution.
They're okay.
They're fantastic for maintaining that constant airflow even when there's no breeze.
Oh, wow.
They're really useful for hot climates
Okay.
or when you're cooking inside the van because they can quickly remove excess heat and odors.
So if you're doing a lot of cooking in your van,
Yeah, definitely a good option.
this sounds like the way to go.
They are great,
Yeah.
but they do come with a higher price tag.
Okay. Yeah, of course.
And the installation is a bit more complex.
Right.
So you'll need to figure out wiring, ensure proper ventilation for the fan motor, and you might need to cut a larger opening in your roof.
Right. Okay. So there's more to it than just cutting a hole and sticking it in there.
Yeah, there's a bit more to it.
All right. So we've got our different skylight options,
Right.
but let's talk about the actual installation process.
Yeah.
Because I think that's something that a lot of people get intimidated by.
It's understandable to be a little apprehensive about cutting a hole in your roof,
Yeah.
but I promise, with proper planning and the right tools, it's definitely manageable.
Okay.
Even for, DIY enthusiasts.
So let's break it down. What are the key things to keep in mind when installing windows or skylights in a van?
Okay, well, the most important thing is precision. You need to make sure that you're taking accurate measurements and making precise cuts to ensure a proper fit and a good seal.
Oh.
Because, if you make a bad cut, it can not only affect the aesthetics of your van,
Right.
but it can also lead to leaks and structural issues down the road.
So measure twice, cut once.
Exactly. Measure twice, cut once.
No. So we've made our cuts. We're ready to install. What's next?
Okay, so the next crucial step is sealing.
Okay.
You need to create a watertight seal around the edges of your window or your skylight to prevent any leaks.
Right, because I've heard that's a big area where people can mess up.
Yeah, you're right. A leaky window or skylight is a major headache. Yeah.
And it can lead to serious damage to your van's interior if it's not addressed quickly.
So what kind of sealant do you recommend?
So you want to use a high-quality sealant specifically designed for automotive use.
Okay.
Blue Beetle tape is a popular option.
Okay.
And there are also specialized automotive sealants available.
Okay.
The key is to make sure you apply a generous bead of sealant to all of the mating surfaces before you secure the unit in place.
And don't skimp on the sealant.
No, don't skimp on the sealant. It's worth it to do it right the first time.
Okay, so we've got our precision cutting, we've got our sealant. Anything else?
Yes. One thing that a lot of people overlook is the thickness and the curvature of your van's sheet metal.
Okay.
Some vans have thicker metal than others,
Okay.
which might require you to use longer screws or different mounting brackets for certain types of windows or skylights.
Okay.
And if your van has a lot of curves, you might need to get creative with your installation
Right.
to make sure you get a proper fit. Are there any special tools or techniques for dealing with those curves?
There are a few tricks of the trade. You can use a heat gun to slightly soften the sheet metal,
Oh, wow.
which can make it a bit more pliable and easier to conform to the curves of your van.
Okay, so it's a bit of an art form to get these things to fit just right.
It does take some patience and some finesse.
Okay.
And, if you're not comfortable working with tools or dealing with sheet metal,
Right.
it's always a good idea to consult with a professional installer.
Yeah, it's better to be safe than sorry.
Absolutely. They have the experience and the expertise to handle these challenges, and they can make sure that the installation is done properly.
Right. And even if you are planning to do it yourself, just getting some guidance from a professional
Yeah.
could be really valuable.
Absolutely. They can give you some tips. They can help you troubleshoot any potential problems
Okay.
and just help you avoid making any costly mistakes.
Awesome. Well, I think that's a great place to wrap up this part of our deep dive. We'll be back in just a moment to talk about some of the challenges and pitfalls of ventilation and how to overcome them. Welcome back to our deep dive. We've been talking all about ventilation in our camper vans,
Yes, we have.
and we've covered a lot, choosing the right windows and skylights,
Right.
maximizing airflow with fans.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to talk about some of the challenges
Okay,
that can come up even with a really good ventilation plan.
Yeah, absolutely. Even with, the best planning and meticulous installation,
Right.
there are still a few common hurdles that a lot of van lifers encounter.
Okay.
And being aware of those challenges ahead of time
Right.
can save you a lot of headaches down the road.
So let's talk about it. What are some of the most common issues?
Okay, so one of the biggest and most persistent challenges
Okay.
is condensation.
Yeah.
Even with proper ventilation, condensation can still form,
Right.
especially in colder climates or when there's a big temperature difference
Mm.
between the inside and outside of your van.
I've heard horror stories about waking up to like dripping windows
Oh, yeah.
and like soggy belongings.
It's not fun.
Not fun at all.
No. And if you let it go unchecked, it can lead to more serious problems like mold growth,
Right.
which can be harmful to your health and damage your van's interior.
So besides having good ventilation and insulation,
Yeah.
are there other things that we can do?
Yeah, for sure. So one really helpful tool is a hygrometer,
Okay.
and that measures the humidity level inside your van.
Okay.
So it can help you identify when the humidity is getting too high,
Okay.
and you can take steps to reduce it.
So it's like an early warning system.
Exactly, an early warning system for condensation.
Okay.
And when it comes to actually reducing humidity, there are a few practical things you can do.
Yeah. Like what?
Well, try to minimize activities that produce a lot of moisture,
Okay.
like cooking with boiling water or drying clothes inside the van, especially when it's cold outside.
Okay.
And then also ventilation is key, even if it's cold outside. Try to crack a window or two for a short period each day just to let some fresh air circulate.
Okay.
And then you might also consider investing in a dehumidifier, especially if you're spending time in humid climates or if you just tend to produce a lot of moisture inside your van.
So basically, we're going to be monitoring these humidity levels all the time.
Pretty much, yeah. You want to stay on top of it.
Okay. So condensation. What else?
Another common issue is noise,
Okay.
windows and skylights.
Right.
While they're great for ventilation, they can also let in a lot of outside noise.
Yeah. Especially if you're by a highway or something.
Exactly, especially if you're camping near a busy road or a noisy campground.
Yeah. I need my peace and quiet.
Right. And noise pollution can really detract from the tranquility of van life.
Yeah.
So it's important to consider noise insulation when choosing your windows and skylights.
Okay. Are there special windows or skylights that help with that?
Yes. So double pane windows or skylights with what's called acoustic glazing
Okay.
can significantly reduce noise transmission.
What is acoustic glazing?
So acoustic glazing is a type of glass that's designed to dampen sound waves.
Okay.
It typically involves using 2 or more layers of glass with a special interlayer that absorbs and dissipates sound energy.
So it's like noise-canceling headphones for your windows.
Exactly, built-in noise canceling.
Cool.
And in addition to acoustic glazing, you can also use curtains or blinds to help block out noise and light.
Okay, great. So what else besides noise?
Well, another big one is security.
Oh, yeah.
Windows and skylights can be vulnerable points of entry.
Right, because we're trying to make our vans, comfy and homey.
Yeah,
But we also need to think about, keeping people out.
exactly. You want to feel safe and secure in your van.
Yes.
So it's essential to take steps to secure your windows and skylights, especially if you're traveling in areas with higher crime rates.
So what can we do?
Well, one option is to install security screens or bars over your windows.
Okay.
Those provide a physical barrier that can deter thieves.
Okay.
And there are also special locks available for skylights. Okay.
Which can prevent them from being opened from the outside.
And then just, basic stuff like parking in well-lit areas, being aware of our surroundings, not leaving valuables out in the open.
Yes, all of those common sense things are super important.
Okay, good. So we've covered condensation noise security.
Right.
What else?
One final thing to keep in mind is maintenance.
Okay.
Windows and skylights, like any other part of your van, they require regular cleaning and inspection,
Right.
just to make sure they're functioning properly.
Mhm.
Seals can dry out and crack over time,
Okay.
so you want to check them periodically and reapply sealant as needed.
So it's not just a one and done kind of thing.
No, it's an ongoing thing.
Gotcha.
But trust me, it's worth the effort.
Right.
Good ventilation is crucial for a comfortable, healthy, and enjoyable van life experience.
Well said. I think that's a great point to wrap up this deep dive.
Yeah.
What are some key takeaways that you want our listeners to remember?
Okay, so first and foremost, ventilation is not an afterthought.
Right.
It's a fundamental aspect of any successful van conversion. It needs to be planned from the beginning.
Yes, think about it early in the process and invest in high-quality components
Okay.
and professional installation if you need it.
Don't try to go cheap on ventilation.
Yeah, you'll regret it.
Okay, what else?
Be prepared for potential challenges like condensation noise and security.
Right.
A little knowledge and some proactive planning can go a long way.
Okay.
And lastly, remember that maintaining your ventilation system is key
Right.
to ensuring its longevity and effectiveness.
This has been so informative. I feel like I've learned so much about ventilation,
Me too.
and I hope our listeners feel the same way.
Yes, I hope everyone's feeling informed and empowered.
To create their own well-ventilated havens.
Exactly. A little effort and attention to detail can make a huge difference.
Absolutely. Well, if you enjoyed this deep dive on ventilation, don't forget to like this episode and subscribe to Mastery in Travel for more deep dives.
Yes, definitely do that.
All right, until next time, happy travels, everyone.